In the time period since my last update and up until this point of reporting, I have been brought before Raw Tier Air on 3 occasions. Each of them had to do with the rebalancing of my vibratory state and the frustrating behavior and actions of some people from my inner circle. During these visits, I was able to observe the cosmic scene and noticed that the giant blue spheres were becoming notably more translucent. The 9 metallic spheres were in about the same positions as they had been weeks earlier. Meetings with the Earth Alliance. By this point, we were getting fairly close to the time of the U.S. presidential election, which was indeed extremely contentious, as David had opened up with in Part 1. I had already been told many months ago that the SSP Alliance was in support of either Bernie Sanders or Donald Trump winning the election. Both of these men are aware of the cabal, are not a part of it, and want to see it taken down for the betterment of humanity. Just days before the election, certain allies I had in the FBI, Department of Homeland Security, and FEMA reconnected with me. They were very excited because their data showed that Trump was likely to win. Hack attacks from a panicked cabal. This next phase of insider contact started a few days after I published my last update. It began with a series of hacking attempts on my home computers. 3 of the computers that I use for work began to pop up intrusion alerts. I disconnected from the internet and ran a few security scans on them out of an abundance of caution. I found out these cabal groups have apparently been in a state of panic for weeks, as more and more has been leaked about their involvement in pedophilia and sex slave rings. They are also organ harvesting their young victims to sell on the black market. These are just a few of the crimes being committed. The FBI has had enough. The FBI has been quietly investigating these deplorable crimes for decades. David's own insiders independently confirmed this to him, and it has now gone public, as we saw in Part 1. The FBI investigators had brought this evidence to several attorney generals in the past, only to have them tell the FBI to close their investigations. The FBI soon realized that major changes would have to occur before they would ever be allowed to bring these people to justice. The more they investigated, the more prominent and powerful names began to pop up. It appears that these sex slave and pedophile rings have been associated with close to 1/3 of everyone working in government organizations within the USA and the EU. It was determined that any attempt to prosecute them would be met by roadblocks. This is one key reason why the alliance favored Trump. This appears to be one of the main reasons most of the FBI was behind Donald Trump in the election process. They knew the alliance was in favor of Trump becoming the next president. The FBI have been aware of the alliance for some time. The FBI believed that if Trump won the election, they would finally have their opportunity to bring this evidence to an attorney general who would actually prosecute. This was such a contentious election process that it caused a huge amount of anxiety for people on both sides of the political parties. Former allies returned at the last minute. Since I had gone public, a few of my sources in the FBI, Department of Homeland Security, and FEMA had broken off contact with me because of the crackdown on whistleblowers in the Obama administration. The day before the election, all 3 of these people contacted me and told me that Trump would win. They then began to share quite a lot of inside information with me about the above-mentioned investigations. Not so sure. I have to admit that I was skeptical of Trump winning and completely sickened by the details that were given about these pedophilia rings. I was also a bit suspicious that all 3 of these individuals contacted me to share intelligence so soon after I was warned that a disinformation campaign against all SSP whistleblowers would occur. It was clear that I would have to vet these sources all over again. Time to gather all the intel. The following night, I was as shocked as everyone else to see Trump actually win the election. I was able to confirm through other sources that these 3 individuals were not attempting to discredit me. I then contacted them for a full download. I found out that Soros is under investigation by the FBI for all he did prior to the election years before and his involvement in the current riots. Obama appears to be willing to agree to not pardon Hillary if some of his legacy is preserved somehow. It appears Trump and Obama are keeping that option open, but I doubt it will occur after hearing all of the President of the United States ties to the Clinton investigation that keep popping up. There is a very unsettled mood among the establishment types. This was not supposed to happen. They tried to rig the voting, but underestimated the voter turnout for Trump. David captured a photograph of the front page of Huffington Post, now controlled by Verizon, on Election Day. It showed a 98% chance of Hillary winning and a 1.7% chance for Trump. Vote hacking would not be sufficient. It turned out that there were so many voters for Trump that it outpaced the Soros-owned voting machine glitches that they hoped would steal the election. They had calculated that changing approximately 1 out of 100 votes for Hillary in the key swing states would be sufficient, and they were wrong. I was clearly told that Soros was financing most of the riots right now, as I just said. There are also lots of revenge attacks occurring against Russia from cabal-type groups. I found out that things are very bumpy right now between the alliance and cabal. They were not supposed to lose the President of the United States position. Very sickening information. As David shared in Part 1, Dr. Steve Pieczenik revealed that the alliance was behind the Pizzagate emails. They knew exactly what we were going to find when they leaked them. The general population is being prepared for some very sickening information about all levels of influence in the U.S. government. We are going to find out how many people who are very influential from both political parties in the U.S. and the EU have been a part of this massive pedophile ring. This sex slave ring has also been used as a device to blackmail powerful people into paying large sums of money, as well as to influence how they make policy decisions. Once these uncomfortable truths are disclosed, society will not only be ready for more of the truth, they will take to the streets to demand it. Once we see how much is hiding below the surface and that this is just the tip of the iceberg, it will no longer be so easy for any power group to control the people. A visit from a drone. Shortly after I renewed these contacts, my wife came in the back door at about 1 p.m. Central Standard Time and told me a drone was flying all around the back of our house. I ran outside to see a white drone flying around, getting a good look at our house and the parking lot behind us. It then suddenly flew off quickly to its apparent takeoff zone, which had to be pretty far away. I had recently learned that there are similarities to electrogravitic craft in the way drones operate and are controlled. It was further communicated that some of these exotic craft have flight control systems that mimic game controllers or radio remote controls. Full-sized drones will appear in our skies as part of partial disclosure. I was told that in our near future we will see our skies fill with 3- and 4-rotor aircraft that look very similar to the drones that are so popular right now. I was also told these tri- and quadcopters would be almost completely automated, with advanced collision avoidance and autopilot features. This scenario would be part of a limited and partial disclosure program. The cabal had hoped this would result in humanity not being told about anti-gravity technology until some time later. I was told that the rotors and motors on these drones could be replaced by anti-gravity technologies as they are declassified and become available. These craft will be used quite a lot by the military and police as well as by various civilian industries. I got interested and purchased my own drone. My interest was piqued to the point where I decided to purchase a drone of my own to learn how to fly them for myself. Since I purchased a cheap drone that doesn't have GPS, all I have done is crash it repeatedly. I don't think it was a coincidence that a drone was performing an open reconnaissance of my house so soon after I bought my own. This visitation happened in the same week where I had purchased a cheap drone at a local electronic toy store, and only 12 hours after I had published my most recent report. A shadow revolution. If you have read my last report, then you heard that a shadow revolution is occurring in the USA and is being supported by the Earth Alliance. So much of this battle is occurring in the background and over the internet that we are only now beginning to see it bubbling up into the open. I think we should all be meditating on a smooth transition and a full disclosure for humanity. Never before have the masses been so fed up with the corruption that is blatantly occurring right in front of our eyes with no accountability. We are witnessing the beginning of a grand transition. There will be growing pains for sure, but the end result should make it all worth it. If we can navigate through this time period honorably, we will have set ourselves up for the consciousness renaissance that we have been robbed of for millennia. Antarctica and Cabal surrender. Various world political and religious leaders have been brought down to Antarctica in the last year. The new archaeological finds are a major reason for this. They are excitedly taking tours of the findings. According to sources, the Cabal plans on fleeing to an island in New Zealand, certain areas of South America, and Antarctica. If so, these meetings may very well be a signal to the Alliance that key members of these secret Earth syndicates are preparing to escape justice from an angry American populace. The Cabal had believed they could steal the election and once again escape their fates. They were wrong. Perhaps the strangest development of all was when U.S. top diplomat John Kerry flew down to Antarctica right on Election Day. Buzz Aldrin visited the ruins as well, and something caused him to fall ill and need to leave the area before he was scheduled to. Section 2. Pre-Adamite Ruins. In this section of our fascinating new intel update, we go into even more detail about the pre-Adamite ruins that have been discovered in Antarctica. As it turns out, these fallen angels, the survivors of an epic off-planet war, deliberately landed in what is now Antarctica to take advantage of the high-tech ruins that were much, much older. The idea of all of this intel being exposed now is extremely exciting. The Cabal is already offering tours to their own people of the ruins, and for them, it is like going to a cosmic adult Disneyland. Final section. Introduction by David Wilcock. Corey had put together everything you just read in the first section before our latest Gaia taping. In fact, the write-up was an essential element of organizing his thoughts for our interviews. Not long after we returned home from the taping, additional surprising experiences happened to both Corey and me. I ended up with a planned power outage that was only supposed to last a few hours, but stretched on well past the time I had to go to bed. Without electricity, the house became cold and dark, and I had to rely on my prepper supplies to live comfortably, which I basically did. A fairly prolonged power outage may occur. I saw that this could be a synchronistic warning of a mass power outage that would occur as we head into the final phase of the Cabal's takedown. There have been long-standing rumors of an approximately 2-week power outage, perhaps a bit longer, as the Alliance goes through the final stages of arresting key Cabal operatives. This is primarily intended to prevent them from fleeing and to minimize panic and civilian casualties during the arrest process. Shortly after my power outage, Corey and I got talking via Skype text, and the results were good enough that we will close out our article with the notes of our conversations. By this point, Corey had new experiences that added even more to our story, but he hadn't had time to write them up yet. We have slightly edited and improved our conversation in order to make it more readable and listenable and add greater context in certain areas. Conversation between Corey and David. December 3rd, 2016, 2:14 a.m. David: we just had a day-long power outage. Everything was pitch black, and they didn't turn it back on until well after midnight, well after everyone had to sleep in dire cold. What are your thoughts on the 2-week power outage scenario for mass arrests? This seemed like a 5-alarm fire level warning, telling me to get ready for it being a lot longer than one night. Corey: that is why I delivered the message to have a minimum of 2 weeks of supplies. I am definitely ready. Unraveling very quickly. David: it does also appear that the Cabal will create a financial collapse to further try to ruin Trump if nothing else works. Pizzagate was the #1 story on the internet yesterday, as evinced by it being the top of Dig, which is a content aggregator. I photographed that. This whole thing is unraveling very quickly. The more the mainstream media keeps saying there is, quote, no evidence and no victims whatsoever, unquote, the more the kids doing this are waking up and fighting even harder. It's very interesting. So I am seriously wondering if the stuff could hit the fan before the inauguration. They may not be able to hold it off that long, and the cabal may force things to come to a head sooner than that. Most of the agreements have been made. Corey. Things are actually moving at a snail's pace in the background right now. Just about all of the things we talked about that were being negotiated between the Alliance and the cabal have now been agreed upon, mostly. In the meantime, prepare to see tons of elite connected people resigning from their jobs. They will not flee the country, of course, but will immigrate to a safe zone out of protest of Trump being president and ruining all of their hard work, etc. David. Wow. How recently since the election did they come to a full agreement? Corey. Most of these agreements were final just before the election, once the likely outcome had become apparent, but many have occurred after the election. David. Both of these data points can and should work their way into the update so it is current. I will see to that. Losing power for this long was like a massive cosmic reset point for me. It does make sense that the cabal would make an agreement once they see what is happening. However, their core teaching is betrayal is the first rule of the order, so it is unlikely that they will ever accept any deal and actually do it. The Antarctic Discovery. Corey. I have now had well over a dozen confirmations that indeed a huge effing discovery was made down in Antarctica. Indeed, there are many, many types of ruins and artifacts strewn out across the continent group of islands and in underground facilities beneath the glacier-covered land. David. Very cool. Corey. The update is going to need an update to get current, but I can take care of that. David. Did this Antarctica discovery get facilitated by ice cap melting, allowing new areas to be accessed, then coupled with digging, or was it just the result of excavation? Corey. There was some melting, but mostly years and years of excavating. They use steam blowers to do most of their excavation of artifacts and to create new areas when they need to build, I was told. David. They must have hit the mother lode recently if it took them years to get there. Corey. Mother effing lode. Many square miles of new ruins. David. That makes sense about the steam blowers. Are we talking about a Manhattan-sized area of buildings and working technological artifacts? That good? Corey. Many square miles of ruins have been detected, with only a small percentage that has actually been excavated thus far. David. So it's not like the ruins were protected in some sort of dome under the ice and left undamaged. They are all trashed up, I assume, but there are still things in there that can be pulled out. Are any of the buildings in a fairly undamaged condition? Corey. They were all flattened, crushed, or knocked over by the events that flash froze the area. They have tons of trees, plants, and wildlife frozen in place, like they were put on pause. They are also finding many pre-Adamite bodies. David. Interesting. I expected that everything would have been thoroughly smashed unless there were some very unique conditions. There will be a whole lot of giant animals, sloths, mastodons, toxodons, turtles, and what have you. The biosphere was very different then. Corey. That is absolutely true. They are already pulling out a variety of bodies of flash-frozen prehistoric animals. Corey is being used as a dream symbol. Corey. I just remembered that Kari told me many people are having dreams of me teaching them in small classes in underground bases and in spaceships. This is because several different groups are using me as an avatar in dream contact now, as well as the people putting me in that place subconsciously. That is just freaky stuff and I don't like it. An avatar could be used of me to do anything in most dream states. David. I know the feeling. We've both had thousands of people write in after images of us appear in their dreams. We have to remind them that we are not literally traveling there, nor are we aware of what they experienced. Dreams are symbolic and metaphorical in nature, and based on the work we are doing, these symbols usually represent people's transcendent aspect in Jungian terms. Corey. There is quite a lot of dreamscape communication going on from the inner Earth groups, as well as from the ETs and Black Ops government types. People should definitely be paying close attention to whatever they remember right now. The Cabal finally have something to feel positive about. Corey. Most of my recent intel has been about ancient technologies and ruins that are causing a major buzz in the elite communities. It is interesting that we circle back to our prehistory during this time of times as we decide how we as a collective will finish. David. Maybe it's nice that the elite finally have something to feel positive about. It may make them feel better about signing a deal with the Alliance and actually not lying for once. The discoveries have captured everyone's attention. Corey. These groups are sort of in a lull between battles right now and are all sort of focused on some of the recent discoveries. David. They already have access to really cool stuff, but perhaps this is something that more of the Earth-based groups get to enjoy. Those groups haven't necessarily been able to see the stuff off-planet, so it makes sense that there would be excitement even though there has already been lots of cool stuff to see. Corey. This is stuff they knew or heard in myth that existed under the ice and inside other ruins around the globe. This is the first time anyone has had access to it in roughly 10 to 18,000 years. So yes, they are pumped. David. Buzz appears to have been able to see it as well, only to then have some health issues. Corey. His old heart probably about pounded out of his Mars mission shirt. What are we going to find? David. Are any of the buildings intact and upright enough to walk around inside of them? Any power systems still functional? Corey. It sounded like there are some that are not totally flattened above ground. Most of the stuff is below ground in caverns. There are even more ancient sites from these pre-Adamites that are below the ground, just like we would find a site if we did a dig. So they have been doing excavations on the surface, digging below the surface as well as in cavern cities and military complexes that belonged to this ancient group. They are going to make it public. Corey. Ancient aliens will go nuts over this stuff. David. Will, as in they intend to make this part of the partial disclosure fairly early along? Corey. I presume so, as they are not keeping a very tight lid on these discoveries very well, and it's during a time of an agreed-upon agenda for partial disclosure. David. Wow, that will be extremely exciting. They probably would prefer to start with something new and Earth-based before opening it up to anything off-planet. That makes a lot of sense. They are taking out all the good stuff and cleaning it up. David. They are probably scrambling to remove all the good stuff before opening it up any further. That way, they only allow us to discover the things they want discovered. So the best tech probably won't be there. Corey. Yes, in fact, they have been moving major artifacts already in the giant electromagnetic subs under the rift system I had mentioned before. David. See, I just know too much of how this group works. Cynical from years of study, I guess. Corey. Yep, their tactics have not changed for many hundreds of years. It is hard to be positive knowing all of the stuff going on in the background, but I do the best I can. When did this all start? And what did they find? David. Are a majority of the top Cabal people touring there at various times? And when did the discovery actually get excavated to an appreciable degree? Corey. The first discoveries occurred some time back, not sure. They had an idea of what was below the ice after doing very high-tech scans from space. They had been excavating one site and discovered many, many others spread out across what used to be dry ground. This happened over time. They have been studying what they are finding and moving some of it out before bringing in various bigwigs from various secret societies. Then they do tours like the Cabal Disneyland they have in the stasis chamber in Ohio. They are continuing to excavate, but know what is around in the areas where they have cleared away the ice. They are worried that all of the steam excavation could cause the surface of the ice shelf to collapse down on the sites they have uncovered. I think they would have to go public in some sort of a way to go bigger on this excavation and widen it. Why couldn't you talk about this before? David. Very interesting. Why was there a feeling of you not being able to discuss this before now? You had about 3 months where you were alluding to this but couldn't go into details. I don't understand what the sensitivity factor was all about. Corey. Preservation of public perception. David. I don't get it. They didn't want you to be the first to leak the story? They want to maintain the narrative and do it their own way instead of having it leaked? Corey. The SSP had operatives in place on our end. That kept some of the info from coming out sooner. The elite want to maintain the narrative. Alliance personnel would have been compromised. David. So the SSP Alliance folks are the reason why this discovery is coming out sooner, as in now, through your leaks? Corey. Yes. And all SSP and Alliance assets have been removed from the theater. David. Right. They had to clean it all up first. Corey. Yes. They had assets in place in key labs and installations, etc. All of that intel is being gathered right now. There are tons of freaking labs down there studying all kinds of stuff. David. I am sure there are, or at least there were. Corey. Carcasses of prehistoric animals are being packed up and sent on these subs as well. David. That makes sense. Maintaining security for the Alliance. David. Is there a reason why you were ordered not to reveal this any sooner, considering these folks are in the Alliance? I am not sure I understand the structure of the timing. Corey. The structure was that we couldn't talk about it without letting the Cabal know who was giving the info. Then they would find out assets were in place, identify who they were, and kill them. So after the assets were removed, the info could come out. Most of it. David. Wow, that makes perfect sense. Why would you be briefed on sensitive intel? I guess the next question is, why are they telling you anything and then asking you not to leak it, considering you could be abducted and have it extracted from you by electrochemical means? I still don't understand why you are getting told things you can't share. Corey. They apparently wanted all this to get to the Air Force guy that questioned me for some reason during the time of extracting the assets. David. Wow. Very interesting about Sigmund. Now it is actually all making sense. We don't want to ruin it. David. I guess the only other thing that concerns me is, if we leak this, couldn't the elite turn around and change plans and ensure that no one ever sees it? Or are they so close to defeat that it is going to see the light of day either way? Corey. They may try to cover it up again, but things are so far gone for them it doesn't even matter much. Sigmund has finally figured it out. Corey. Sigmund was causing a lot of problems for the SSP Alliance. He was hunting them down as traitors, pretty much. Once he got this recent info from me, he then turned and has been asking a lot of angry questions from his superiors. So that mission seems to be accomplished for now. David. Unbelievable. Corey. These missions are usually not clear for me as I move through them. It is a hard way to work, for sure. Why couldn't he have gotten the intel through other means? David. I don't know why he couldn't have just pulled phone records from my calls with Jacob and Henry Deacon and compared it to what you were saying. There are far, far, far too many specifics to be fake. Corey. He thinks they are all full of it and are gaming you as well. David. It's not possible to telepathically download so many specifics from each other at that level of complexity. It would be much easier for them to be telling the truth than for it to be some vastly coordinated deception. I just could never buy it, and that is why I have always been behind you 100%. Corey. Yeah, they were trying to figure out if I was just one hell of a psychic pulling this stuff out of the ether. This has been a major shift for the positive. Corey. Whatever the truth really was, old Sigmund was going to get to the bottom of it and find all security leaks for sure. He does not screw around. David. I am very glad to hear he is no longer destroying the SSP Alliance. Corey. It was causing the SSP Alliance members that are part of these programs in the military to be so shy that they were not coming out of cover to report and do command and control work. So yes, this is a big deal. David. And this was the guy at the center of the whole problem. This is very interesting. It is quite a relief that things have turned around. You were used, definitely, but you may have saved the entire full disclosure scene in the process. Has the SSPA's attitude towards us improved any since the Wrangler days? I would imagine this was a major win. Corey, I don't think they've had a lot of time to talk bad about us for a while now. They are very happy Sigmund was leaving them alone right now. Even more intel after Part 1 was published. David's note, this was where we had left off and were ready to go. Right after Part 1 went up, the MIC secret space program seemed very happy. We were then given the following intel. December 7th, 2016, 9:28 a.m. Corey, wow to the frickin' wow! I got a nice chunk of info about the pre-Adamite ruins and other things discovered in Antarctica during a no-questions briefing this morning. It was from MIC Secret Space Program personnel sent by Sigmund. The pre-Adamites went to Antarctica to re-inhabit ancient builder race ruins. It appears that there was already some ice on Antarctica when the pre-Adamites arrived. It was, of course, in a different position than it is today, much closer to the equator. They went to this semi-tropical region even though it was not as hospitable as other places on the planet for a reason. They were coming here with little technology from a dire situation and wanted to take advantage of ancient builder race ruins and technology in Antarctica. There is at least one ancient builder race ruin complex there that is over 1.8 billion with a B years old. Amazing tech remnants. The researchers found pretty amazing ancient tech remnants. One discovery was a complex of rooms with a gold-copper alloy mix that were in plates covering the ceilings, walls, and floors of this complex. An image of Botatong Temple in Yangon, Burma, could be used for a general vision, not exact, of these gold rooms. They had weird spirals and grooves in the plates. They were obviously for channeling large amounts of electricity. There were other rooms that had a different atmosphere than we breathe, where the gravity is only about 36% of one actual Earth G. Cannibalized their own craft. It looks like the pre-Adamites cannibalized the ancient builder race ruins and technology along with the technology they had brought with them from their original world. It was obvious that they had also cannibalized the craft they arrived in to build the oldest parts of this pre-Adamite main city. Dude, there are so many things they found are finding. They have excavated little of what they have detected. I hope to hear more soon. I was told to keep this under wraps until more info has come in. Sharing it with you, though. David's note. 2 days later, we got authorized to include this material, which I was very happy about. Additional intel came in as well. Dehydrated, mummified bodies. Corey. Amazing ancient ruins were found in large areas of Antarctica, along with flash-frozen prehistoric animals and the inhabitants of the cities at the time, who were all killed in a major catastrophe. They have found these people looked much the same as the bodies that were discovered while excavating the Pompeii, Italy eruption. The Adamites that were not mixed hybrid breeds were indeed in the 12-foot-tall range. The bodies were all dehydrated and looked like rubber or dried leather. Many had slight pot bellies with fat pockets on them, as they did on their chests, like the dreaded man boobs. They were wiry, with very little muscle definition. They were in dress that was very similar to Egyptian, except it was more lavish, colorful, and pretty, with fine linens, etc. Their style was similar to ancient Egypt, but with a slightly different look on the headdresses and garments as well. The highest-ranking MIC SSP officers do know about ETs. December 9th, 2016, 6:39 a.m. Corey. One clarification needs to be made for the article. The highest-ranking officers in the military-industrial complex secret space program know there are a few other ETs here in the solar system. They know of 4 or 5 that frequent the Earth and over 50 that are known to have visited Earth or our solar system. Only the bigwigs like Sigmund know about the larger number of ETs. They plan on reporting to the masses that either no ETs are here now or they may introduce us to a human-looking ET that has been here for a long time. David, it is very interesting to hear that the MIC Secret Space Program guys do know about some ETs and are not necessarily kept in the dark. That was new. Corey, yes, many of the higher-ups know of a handful, like the info in the books that NATO had in the 1960s. There are various factions of military and intel groups that make up the MIC Secret Space Program, all with different narratives. David, we can clarify all of that. Corey, Most of lower-level people don't know of aliens, and all of them have wanted to push the ancient aliens info and the story that current ETs are time travelers. That is what they want to do to the public in partial disclosure. David, this is very interesting and useful, and we will definitely work it in there, as I did not know that. Genetic experiments were being conducted. December 10th, 2016, 5:28 a.m. Corey, I am getting more and more in chunks, so to speak. There have been finds of complexes of genetics labs that were creating all sorts of mixes and matches of humanoid species on Earth. They were mixing the DNA of each of the Earth humanoids that were meant to be separate experiments of the genetic farmer races. This created all sorts of human hybrids. They also bred certain traits into small test populations to create different types of humans, giants, etc. This created problems with the genetic farmers. They seemed to also be working on bringing back certain humanoid dinosaur-type races that had perished on Earth long ago. This was a major problem for the genetic farmer races whose current experiments were being contaminated and hijacked. Then this global incident occurred that purged most of the pre-Adamite genetic experiments. The pre-Adamites were breeding these humans as beasts of burden, and to protect and serve them, working mines, etc. This sort of thing had been done to humans on multiple occasions over the last few 100,000 years. Connection to the Casey readings. David, fascinating. Are you aware that the Casey readings said that one of two main reasons the Atlanteans were destroyed by the Elohim were that they were playing around with genetics? They were apparently making hybrids between humans and different types of non-human creatures. Corey, no, I haven't looked at the Casey stuff much at all. David, this is just another example of where you hear things that so thoroughly validate stuff I've been talking about for 20 years. It's amazing. The bodies were mummified. David, did they succeed on getting reptilian species made? Corey, there were different iterations of humanoid types of these species, but I don't know how far along they were. Far enough for them to get in trouble, I guess. David, so they literally found these labs with bodies of different types of hybrids growing in the incubators? Corey, oh, the bodies are in very rubbery, leathery condition. The tests after excavation show that the ice had quite a lot of signs of salty seawater in it. They found a lot of animals and humanoids in the process of being created in these labs. David, just for specifics, are the humanoids seen inside cylindrical tubes or something along those lines as they are being grown? Corey, nothing that specific, only that they were found in the process of being created in complexes of genetic labs. David, it would have to be something like that. They would need protection as they were in the growth phase, and they probably make them to order in at least a semi-adult form. Corey, or grow them inside another beast of burden. The word breed was used. David, that could be, but I think it is more technological. Breeding could still be technological. They were in survival mode. Corey, the pre-Adamites were doing things lower tech than they would like. They were here with very little of their tech or comforts from home. They were in survival mode up until the global event. David, right, that makes sense. Corey, not sure if I told you, but I did in my tweet. Many pre-Adamite bodies were found similar to the way bodies were found in Pompeii. It has actually been nicknamed by some as the Pompeii on ice. We need to expand our focus. Corey, right now, all of these SSP people and these beings are wanting people like us to focus outside of our choirs that we preach to. Books, speaking events, and TV shows that mainly market to people that are already awake is not going to really get us anywhere overall in a larger sense. What we do helps the group consciousness a lot, for sure, but is not doing enough to reach a larger group of monkeys, so to speak, to kick that 100th monkey effect into super high gear. This is what is needed for us to achieve the optimal temporal reality. Conclusion. This now brings you up to date with our latest intel. Exciting changes are in store for humanity. It may seem hard to believe any of these things are true. We understand that. Bear in mind that one of the most important reasons why we are doing this is so that the establishment cannot control the narrative. We do not want partial disclosure. With Sigmund now aware that he has been lied to, that whole plan may no longer work. If you start hearing any of the things we have been saying here as mainstream news, then you can remember where you heard it first. We can also expect that many more people will come back to this write-up after such an announcement or some variant of it, is made. Doing the work. Both David and I are working on releasing as much quality intel as possible in the time window that we still have. If the establishment were to release this intel first, then we would appear to be riding on their coattails. The future is sure to be very interesting, and the telltale signs of an endgame are already visible. This is the greatest football game in our recorded history, and the outcome is not yet defined. You can help steer this towards a positive result by maintaining a positive, loving attitude in your thoughts and actions towards yourself and others. Winning the cosmic battle. This is indeed a cosmic battle between good and evil, and the good guys are winning. The key to success is in not allowing any negative information you encounter to affect your overall positive attitude and co-creation of a better future. You are already seeing major elements of what we have been telling you now appearing as widespread realizations, with plenty of provable evidence. The Cabal's only real chance to stave off defeat and appease the Alliance is disclosure, so we have some very interesting experiences to look forward to in the near future. Your support of our grassroots efforts is vital to our success. You can find out much more about this insider world by subscribing to Gaia and watching our shows. Corey also has had continuing financial distress, so if you feel guided to, please visit spherebeingalliance.com and make a donation. David's new book, The Ascension Mysteries, gives far more context to what we have discussed here, and both of us are eagerly awaiting the announcement of new projects as well. Thanks, and stay tuned. Update by David Wilcock before posting. The story is already leaking. We were urged to get this article out in the strongest possible terms as fast as possible. Corey's article went up Sunday morning, December 11th, after we'd worked on it all week as fast as we could. Almost immediately after Corey posted this first draft, the planned intel rollout we were warned about started to happen. It was an incredible, quote-unquote, coincidence that was obviously a very deliberate event. Let me read you this headline now. From the Daily Star. The lost city of Antarctica. Shock claims massive civilization exists beneath a mile of ice. Antarctica is hiding a huge city underneath more than a mile of ice, according to incredible claims, by Rachel O'Donoghue, published December 11, 2016. Subheading beneath the image. Incredible. A lost city, hidden underneath sheets of ice, would be an astounding find. David's note. Let's read a part of this for ourselves, as this was quite astonishing. Quote, U.S. Air Force Lieutenant Colonel Harold Z. Ohlmeyer sent a letter in 1960 to Professor Charles Hapgood saying his theory on the Piri-Reis map was correct. He wrote, quote, the geographical detail shown in the lower part of the map agrees very remarkably with the results of the seismic profile made across the top of the ice cap by the Swedish-British Antarctic expedition of 1949. This indicates the coastline had been mapped before it was covered by the ice cap. This part of Antarctica is ice-free. The ice cap in this region is now about a mile thick. Subheading below the graphic. Theory. The Piri-Reis map of the world appears to show Antarctica without ice. Quote, conspiracists now think Hapgood was right, and he discovered that much of the South Pole was ice-free, and also the location of the lost city of Atlantis. The existence of this mythical utopia was first mentioned in the writings by ancient Greek philosopher Plato in 360 BC. The Atlantis that Plato described was founded by people who were half god and half human, around 9,000 years before his own time. If it did exist, this would be at a similar time that Professor Hapgood said shifts had occurred in the Earth's crust. And just a month ago, further proof of an Antarctic Atlantis emerged in the form of pictures of what appears to be huge pyramids jutting out of its ice. The astounding photos showed structures that bear an uncanny resemblance to the pyramids of Giza, which were built thousands of years ago by the ancient Egyptians. Could all of this mean one of the world's greatest mysteries is about to be unlocked? End quote. Things are getting exciting. I have barely even gotten enough sleep since we were told it was so urgent that we get this out as fast as possible. Now, almost instantaneously after Corey posted the first version, without most of the images included in the one I posted on Divine Cosmos, we get an article that teases exactly what we were telling you about. What are the odds of this being a mere coincidence? As astonishing and over-the-top as this intel sounds, it all lines up beautifully. There is no way we could have invented a story like this simultaneously with the release of such a teaser in the mainstream media, We were already talking about it in Part 1. Thank you for your support of this work. This is really starting to get interesting. Update, minutes later. Synchronicity already starting. Endgame Part 2 is taking off just as fast as Part 1. The views are flying in after just a few minutes. I just added the Solar Warden image and the hit counter was at a nice even number, 1,600. This is another example of the synchronicity phenomenon I reported in Part 1 happening again. Then, after breaking this into 2 sections and adding some graphics, Part 1 was now at 181,855, 1818.55. A few seconds later, after checking on this update, it got even better. Now the first and the second articles both had repeating digits in their hit counters, 181888 and 4399. This phenomenon requires no effort, and it bodes well for an emergence of the truth. Thank you for walking this path of discovery with us. Update, same night, breaking records. This article has taken off so fast that we've now topped 20,000 unique views in just over 5.5 hours. I hit refresh as it was getting close and landed on the quad, 19999. Thank you for sharing and liking this article. You are helping us fight for full disclosure, and we do sincerely appreciate it. Update 2, same night, 3 sets of 24s. As of 10:51 p.m., 7.5 hours after this article went up, we're already approaching 25,000 hits. I hadn't looked at it at all since the above and took some time off. Before going to bed, I randomly decided to refresh it and got a bunch of 24s. There were 2.4K Facebook likes, and the hit counter was at 24,246. As soon as I published this and closed out of the page, the hit counter had a triple in it, 24447. Some people may not believe that this is happening spontaneously, but once you authorize synchronicity by opening your mind, you will be amazed at what starts to happen. These repeating digits catch your attention and tell you that whatever you were just thinking or doing is a sign that you are on the right track, spiritually speaking. No effort is required, it just works. These continue to be very positive signs that we are indeed right on the threshold of some very major breakthroughs. Update 12/12, 11:41 a.m. Antarctic City hits Drudge. Much to our surprise, an upgraded version of the Antarctic Atlantis story, this time on another MSM tabloid, The Sun, made it onto the front page of Drudge Report today. Headline, The Lost City of Antarctica. Massive ancient civilization lies frozen under ice. When you go ahead and click on the link, this is what you see. The Sun. Headline, The Lost City of Antarctica. Shock claims massive ancient civilization lies frozen beneath mile of Antarctic ice and could even be Atlantis. Conspiracy theorists believe that there is a secret city which is frozen over, and it could even be the lost city of Atlantis. By Jennifer Hale, 12th December 2016, 1:05 p.m. David, this was just one day after our article was published. We were urged that if we didn't post this immediately, we would get washed out by MSM disclosures. That has already started to happen, but thankfully, because we worked really hard, we got the jump on them. This article borrows many of the same images and themes from the Star, but has interesting new elements at the end that is even more in line with what we've been revealing. Quote, Conspiracy theorists went wild earlier this year when a video claiming to be from the Lost City emerged. It appeared to show extensive ancient ruins hidden in the ice, and was a video supposedly left behind by a California TV crew who have been missing since 2002. Archaeologist Jonathan Gray claimed that the U.S. government is trying to block the video from being seen because it reveals there is a, quote, massive archaeological dig underway 2 miles beneath the ice, end quote. But that's not the wildest claim, with several online websites claiming that there is a city in Antarctica and Hitler knew about it, making it a secret Nazi base. The wild claims state that the Nazis claimed an area of Antarctica as German territory and sent an expedition there. Artist's impression of a doorway to Atlantis, which is claimed to be the lost city underneath Antarctica. The Nazis then allegedly mapped the area and discovered a network of rivers and caves, one of which led to a large geothermal lake. A city-sized base was built there called Base 22, or New Berlin, and supposedly was home to not only Nazis but also the Illuminati. However, things get even weirder, with suggestions that the Germans discovered abandoned alien technology or contacted aliens and used it to make super weapons. And some people think the rumored base still exists, with the Germans, aliens, and the Illuminati planning to launch a new world order from it. In October, explorers discovered the remnants of a secret Nazi base hidden deep in the Arctic, just 600 miles from the North Pole. Whatever beings may be inhabiting the base, they'll need to make sure to wrap up warm, with one unlucky Antarctic explorer revealing this week he is suffering from the painful-sounding condition polar penis. This is getting very interesting, David. Never before have we seen such stunning proof of an insider disclosure leading to a nearly instantaneous release in the mainstream media. I have a sneaking suspicion that many will bravely risk a case of polar penis once we find out what's waiting for us down there. History is in the making, and we thank you for helping us get the word out.